Let's start in Norway, because Norway breaks your brain a little bit if you have never seen it before. Picture a prison cell with a real bed, a private bathroom, a window with an actual view, and a kitchen down the hall the inmates use to cook their own meals. That is a real Norwegian prison, not some experimental one-off. The idea driving this is simple, even if it sounds strange at first. Losing your freedom is the punishment, so the prison does not need to pile extra suffering on top of that. Inmates get job training, literacy programs, and addiction treatment because the entire system is built around one question: what does this person need in order to walk out and never come back? Staff are trained in psychology and communication just as much as security, and Norway regularly reports a reoffending rate sitting somewhere around 20%, which is stunningly low compared to most of the world. The craziest part is, this was never really sold as a soft or nice approach. It's sold as the strategy that actually keeps the public safer long term, because a prisoner who leaves with a job and no addiction is a prisoner who is way less likely to end up back inside. Whatever a country believes about people, whether they can change, whether they deserve a second shot, whether fear keeps everyone else in line, all of that gets built directly into concrete and steel. And Norway is proof some countries build hope right into the walls. If you want to see where your own country lands on this scale by the end of the video, drop a comment when we get there, because the reactions on these usually get wild. Right next door is Sweden, and people love to lump it in with Norway, like they are the same country wearing different flags, but that's actually not true anymore. Sweden built its reputation the same way, rehabilitation first, and at one point, Swedish prisons were closing down because crime dropped so much, there just were not enough prisoners to fill them. That's a real thing that happened. And for years, Sweden ran a system of open prisons where inmates could hold outside jobs and even leave for weekends as part of their sentence. But the last few years have flipped that story hard. Gang violence has spiked, with bombings and shootings tied to organized crime becoming common enough that they regularly make national news, and sentencing laws have gotten tougher as a direct response. Prisons are now so packed that Sweden started renting cell space in Estonia just to have somewhere to put people. I'll say that again because it sounds made up. Sweden is short on prison beds and paying another country to hold its own prisoners. Even the countries the whole world points to as the gold standard for humane prisons are getting squeezed between their ideals and reality. And that tension alone tells you prison ideology is not fixed in stone anywhere. It bends the second crime, and politics push on it. Germany sits in an interesting middle spot between the Nordic countries and what is coming up later in this video. German law actually writes re-socialization into the legal system itself. It's not just a prison policy. It's baked into how judges are supposed to think about sentencing in the first place. Punishment is supposed to be proportional, and a huge chunk of the system runs on day release programs, where inmates leave during the day for real jobs and come back at night. That keeps someone connected to a normal life instead of getting totally cut off from society for years and then drop back into it with zero preparation. German cells also tend to be single occupancy by law in most cases, which sounds small until you realize how rare that actually is once you start comparing it to other countries later in this video. It's rehabilitation with more structure around it than Norway, less of a homey vibe, more of a strict schedule, but the underlying goal is still the same: get this person ready to function on the outside. Germany is basically the last stop before this video takes a hard turn, because everything after this point starts trading warmth for control. And that turn happens the second we land in Japan. Japanese prisons run almost silent. Inmates wake up at a set time, work a set shift, eat at a set time, and in a lot of facilities, they are not even allowed to talk during work hours. Fuchu Prison, one of the most well-known in the country, is described as extremely regimented, strict rules on silence, limited showers, and movement that is basically choreographed down to the minute, with guards using hand signals and specific commands to move entire blocks of prisoners at once. Privileges are not something you automatically get. You earn them through good behavior, and breaking the rules can mean isolation, sometimes for infractions that would barely register as a problem anywhere else. Here's the wild part though. Japan also has one of the lowest incarceration rates and lowest violent crime rates on the entire planet. And the country actually treats work inside prison as a core part of the sentence itself rather than an optional program. So the question this section actually raises is simple. Does that low crime rate happen because of the discipline inside the prisons, or because Japanese culture already leans toward order before anyone even ends up behind bars? Norway trusts that people can change if you treat them like people. Japan trusts that structure and rules are what keep everyone in line, inside prison and outside of it. Singapore takes that same idea of order and cranks it up to a level that might genuinely shock you. The country has one of the lowest crime rates anywhere, and it still keeps caning on the books as an actual legal punishment for certain offenses, including serious rule breaking inside the prisons themselves. This is not some ancient law nobody uses anymore either. It's regulated, medically supervised, and used specifically for things like assaulting an officer or another inmate while incarcerated, and the process itself involves a formal review before it can even be carried out, so it's treated as a serious institutional matter rather than something handed out casually. Beyond caning, Singapore also allows detention without a full criminal trial in certain security cases under its Internal Security Act, which gives the state a level of control over who ends up locked up that most Western countries would never allow under their own laws. The government does not really hide this or treat it like some dark secret. They present it plainly as a deterrent that keeps order both inside and outside prison walls. We're not here to tell you if that's right or wrong. We're just laying out the fact so you can sit with it for a second, because this is one of the wealthiest, safest, most modern countries on earth, and it still runs on corporal punishment as an official tool of the state. Then you get to the United States, and honestly, trying to describe the American prison system as one single thing is kind of impossible, because it isn't one system at all. You've got minimum security camps where inmates can practically walk off the property if they wanted to. And then you have places like ADX Florence, a supermax facility built for total isolation, where prisoners can spend 23 hours a day alone in a cell with almost no human contact. Both of those exist under the same flag, the same federal system, sometimes even in the same state, which is honestly hard to wrap your head around once you sit with it. On top of that, America runs a private prison industry, actual companies that profit off incarceration, which is a structural feature basically none of the other countries on this list have in the same way. And despite locking up more people per capita than almost anywhere on the planet, the recidivism numbers are still rough, which is exactly why some US states have started quietly studying the Norwegian model to figure out if a softer approach might actually work better long term. So it's not that America chose one philosophy for prison. It's more like America built a marketplace of philosophies and just lets all of them run at the same time. Overcrowding gets a whole different meaning once you land in the Philippines. During the country's drug war, tens of thousands of people got swept into detention, a lot of them on minor charges, and the jails simply were not built to hold that many bodies. Some facilities got so packed that inmates started sleeping in shifts because there was not enough floor space for everyone to lie down at the same time. Ride that back for a second. Sleeping in shifts inside a jail just to physically fit. Some of these jails were originally designed decades ago to hold a few hundred people and ended up holding several times that number at once, which turns basic things like using a toilet or getting fresh air into a daily struggle instead of a given. The new Bilibid prison, one of the country's largest, has been reported at multiple times over its intended capacity, and smaller city jails scattered across the country have it even worse because they were never meant to function as long-term holding facilities in the first place. This is not really a story about prison design choices anymore the way Norway or Japan were. It's a story about what happens when a policy on the street turns into a physical crisis behind a locked door, and it shows you that order without enough capacity does not create discipline. It just creates suffering with extra steps. And that brings us to the section everyone probably clicked for, El Salvador. If you have spent any time online in the last couple years, you have seen the footage. Thousands of shaved heads, tattooed men packed shoulder to shoulder, all inside CECOT, the mega prison built specifically to hold gang members. It's one of the largest prisons in the entire Western Hemisphere, and the government built it as the centerpiece of a massive anti-gang crackdown. Here's the part that makes this genuinely complicated. Homicide rates in El Salvador dropped dramatically after the crackdown started, and a lot of citizens there openly support it because they finally feel safe walking outside at night. But human rights groups have documented serious allegations too. Overcrowding far beyond what the facility was designed for, reports of abuse, and detainees held with almost no contact with the outside world or access to due process. So you end up with two things being true at the same time: a country that feels safer than it has in decades, and a prison system that critics say may be hiding real abuse behind the language of security. We're not going to tell you which side of that to land on, because honestly, that's the whole point of this section. That tension is exactly what a country has to weigh when it decides to govern through fear instead of through rehabilitation. Look back at everything we just covered: a Norwegian cell with a view, a Swedish system renting beds from another country, Japan running on silence, Singapore keeping caning on the books, America running 5 different prison philosophies at once, the Philippines with people sleeping in shifts, and now El Salvador betting its entire reputation on one giant facility. Every single one of these countries is answering the exact same question: what do we actually do with a person once they break the rules? And every single one of them landed somewhere completely different. There is no global agreement here, not even close, and we didn't even get to some of the wildest ones yet. There's a South American country where the prisons are effectively run by the inmates themselves, gangs included, and a European country still dealing with prison conditions that international courts have literally ruled are inhumane.